Cheese can be your greatest ally or your silent enemy. It all depends on how you consume it. Yes, this food that many consider perfect can, in certain situations, put your health at risk. And believe it, most people make at least one of these 8 mistakes without realizing it. Today, you're going to discover what these deadly mistakes are when consuming cheeses, and most importantly, how to avoid them so you can keep enjoying all the good things they offer without harming your heart, your digestion, and even your bones. Before we get started, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Here you'll find valuable tips for living healthier and with much more vitality after 60. Now, let's start with the first hidden danger inside cheese that almost no one talks about. Alert number 8. Cheeses and hidden saturated fats. Cheese can be irresistible, creamy, soft, full of flavor. But what many people over 60 don't realize is that in every generous slice, a silent enemy might be hiding: saturated fat. When consumed in excess, saturated fat raises levels of LDL cholesterol, the so-called bad cholesterol. And that paves the way for stiffer arteries, high blood pressure, and even a greater risk of heart attack or stroke. Now, think about it. Have you ever caught yourself cutting a big piece of brie, Gouda, or well-aged cheddar and eating it without noticing the amount? That's exactly the mistake. The danger isn't in tasting it, but in turning these fatty and creamy cheeses into a daily habit and in large portions. After 60, the body becomes less efficient at processing excess fat. The metabolism slows down, the liver works more slowly, and the heart feels every choice you make at the table. And it's not just that. Excess saturated fat also generates inflammation in the body. That means more stiffness in the joints, more difficulty controlling weight, and more silent wear and tear over the years. But here's the important detail. You don't need to ban cheese from your life. The secret is in moderation and smart substitution. So if you love a creamy cheese, reduce the amount. Use a thin slice to add flavor instead of eating big chunks. And alternate with naturally lighter cheeses, like fresh ricotta, cottage, or even goat cheeses, which have less saturated fat. Remember, it's not about losing the pleasure, but about protecting your heart and gaining more years of healthy life. And attention, the next type of cheese seems harmless, but might be sabotaging your health in silence. Alert number 7. Processed cheese versus natural cheese. If there's one mistake that a lot of people make without realizing it, it's believing that those cheese slices are the same as real cheese. But here's the hard truth. Processed cheese is not the same as natural cheese. These industrialized versions are mixtures. They include cheese scraps, vegetable oils, preservatives, artificial colorings, and, mainly, a lot of salt. And the result is something that even looks like cheese, but that overloads your body in a silent way. The excess sodium in these cheeses is a serious problem, especially after 60, when the kidneys don't function with the same efficiency. Each slice might seem small, but it easily adds up to hundreds of milligrams of sodium. And that means more pressure on the blood vessels, greater risk of hypertension, and heart complications. Plus, many of these processed cheeses contain phosphates and additives that, in the long term, can harm calcium absorption. And what does that cause? Weaker bones and greater risk of osteoporosis, exactly the opposite of what you expect when consuming cheese. Now, let's be realistic. It's convenient to open the fridge and put a slice of processed cheese on bread. But this habit, repeated every day, creates an inflammatory combo that wears down the body instead of nourishing it. The good news is that the solution is simple. Prefer natural cheeses, made with milk and ferment, without additives. Options like fresh mozzarella, Brazilian fresh cheese, ricotta, or even a piece of goat cheese offer real flavor and better nutrients for health. Remember, your body recognizes and thanks you when you choose less artificial foods. And it's not about cutting everything out, but about swapping the fake cheese for authentic and nutritious versions. And if you think only processed cheese is salty, wait until you discover the next mistake. Alert number 6. The salt trap in aged cheeses. The intense flavor of grated Parmesan over pasta is almost irresistible. Or the salty touch of a piece of feta or aged cheddar in a sandwich. But that's exactly where the danger lies, the excess salt hidden in these cheeses. Many of these cured and aged cheeses go through a long process where salt is essential for preservation. The problem is that every little bit concentrates an impressive amount of sodium. And here's the trap. You believe you're just adding a touch to the dish. But adding up the consumption throughout the day, this extra salt can raise your blood pressure silently. After 60, this risk increases even more.
The arteries no longer have the same elasticity as in youth. Excess sodium forces the heart to work harder and can be the trigger for hypertension crises, swelling, and even arrhythmias. Now imagine someone who already has high blood pressure. The habit of consuming Parmesan daily can be like feeding a hidden enemy, a small pleasure that, accumulated, brings serious consequences. But here's a practical tip. If you love Parmesan, use it only as a finishing touch. A teaspoon grated is already enough to add flavor. Prefer alternating with naturally less salty cheeses, like fresh mozzarella or ricotta. And whenever possible, try seasoning dishes with aromatic herbs, basil, oregano, rosemary, that reduce the need for so much salt. The secret isn't in abolishing it, but in controlling portions and seeking balance. That way you enjoy the pleasure without overloading the heart. And the next mistake is even more common. Alert number 5, the digestive burden of cheese at night. Imagine the scene. End of the night, you prepare a quick snack with bread and cheese. The feeling is of comfort or treat before bed. But what seems harmless might be hindering your health silently. Fattier and heavier cheeses are slow to digest. When consumed at night, they demand a lot of effort from the stomach, exactly at the moment when the body should be relaxing for sleep. And the result of that is acid reflux, that uncomfortable burning that rises through the chest, gas and bloating which make sleep more restless, and one of the main complaints of the elderly, nighttime awakenings which harm the quality of rest. And it doesn't stop there. Fragmented sleep directly affects memory, mood, and even weight control. In other words, that seemingly simple habit might be stealing energy the next day. After 60, the production of digestive enzymes decreases. That means heavier foods, like aged cheeses, become even harder to process, and that generates a silent overload on the digestive system. But there are alternatives. If you like cheese at night, prefer the lighter ones, like cottage, ricotta, or fresh mozzarella, in small portions. Combine with easy-to-digest fruits, like apple or pear, instead of white breads and processed meats. And avoid eating cheese right before lying down. Give at least 2 hours for the body to work better. That way you keep enjoying the flavor of cheese without sacrificing your rest. And if the problem of digestion at night is already common, there's another important detail. Alert number 4, lactose intolerance after 60. Many people believe that if they've never had problems with milk or cheese, they never will. But the reality is different. Lactose intolerance can arise at any time, especially after 60. This happens because, over time, the body naturally reduces the production of the enzyme lactase, responsible for digesting lactose, the sugar present in milk. And when this digestion doesn't happen correctly, the symptoms appear quickly. Abdominal bloating that bothers, excess gas which disrupts the routine, diarrhea or intestinal discomfort right after consuming cheese or milk, and a feeling of heaviness, even with small portions. The most concerning thing is that often the elderly person doesn't associate these symptoms with cheese. They believe it's just age or an isolated bad digestion. But in fact, the body is giving clear signs of intolerance. And here's another detail. Lactose intolerance isn't just a digestive annoyance. It also harms the absorption of important nutrients. Calcium, for example, essential for strong bones, can be poorly utilized when the intestine is constantly irritated. The good news is there are safe and tasty alternatives. Many cheeses naturally contain little lactose, like parmesan or well-aged cheeses. There are also lactose-free versions, increasingly accessible in the market. And you can bet on light cheeses like ricotta, cottage, or goat cheeses, which are usually better tolerated. The secret is in observing how your body reacts. If you notice discomfort, don't ignore it. Adjust your choices. That way you enjoy the pleasure without sacrificing your rest. And since we talked about calcium, there's a curious paradox. Although cheese is rich in this mineral, its excess can end up harming bone health. That's the next point we need to reveal. Alert number 3, the cheese paradox and bone health. When we think of strong bones, we immediately remember calcium. And yes, cheese is a known source of this mineral. But here's the paradox. Not all cheese consumption strengthens the bones. That's because many cheeses rich in calcium also carry high amounts of saturated fat and salt. These two factors, when exaggerated, hinder the body from utilizing the calcium present in the food itself. Excess salt increases calcium elimination through urine. Excess saturated fat interferes with the intestinal absorption of this mineral.
In other words, you believe you're helping your bone structure, but you might be weakening it silently. And after 60, this is even more delicate. The risk of osteopenia and osteoporosis naturally grows with age. Every food choice can weigh, for better or for worse. But here's the solution. Prefer cheeses with less salt and fat, like ricotta, cottage, and fresh mozzarella. Goat cheeses are also good options, as they offer calcium with better digestibility. And always combine cheese with foods rich in vitamin D and magnesium, like fatty fish, nuts, and dark green vegetables. These nutrients are essential for calcium to be truly fixed in the bones. Another important point, don't rely only on cheese as a source of calcium. Diversify. Include also beans, broccoli, almonds, and sesame seeds in the diet. That way, you break the myth that more cheese equals stronger bones. In practice, the secret is in balance and variety. And speaking of balance, there's a very common mistake that increases the risks even more. Alert number 2. The mistakes of combining cheese with processed meats and refined breads. Who hasn't prepared a quick sandwich with white bread, cheese, and ham? Or that charcuterie board with salami, yellow cheese, and French roll? They're traditional combinations present at parties, coffees, and even dinner. But here's the truth. This mix is a silent bomb for your health. First, cheese already brings saturated fat and often excess salt. By adding processed meats like ham, salami, or mortadella, you double the problem. Lots of sodium, preservatives, and nitrites that increase inflammation in the body. To complete it, refined white bread comes in as quick fuel for blood sugar spikes. And the result is an inflammatory combo that raises the risk of high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, weight gain, and even heart problems. And after 60, this combination is even more dangerous. The body can no longer compensate for excesses with the same ease as in youth. Every wrong choice weighs more and repeats itself in the form of fatigue, pains, and greater vulnerability to diseases. Now, it doesn't mean you need to abandon the pleasures of the table. Swap the processed meats for lean and fresh proteins, like shredded chicken breast, natural tuna, or boiled egg. Replace white bread with whole grain breads, rich in fiber, that help control blood sugar and satiety. And choose light and less processed cheeses, like cottage or ricotta, that bring flavor without overloading the body. With small changes, you transform a dangerous snack into a nutritious and protective meal for your health. And speaking of safer choices, it's time to reveal which cheeses are really friends to your health and how to consume them without giving up pleasure. Alert number 1: healthier cheeses and how to control portions. After so many alerts, you might be wondering, so do I need to cut cheese out of my life? And the answer is clear: no. The secret is in choosing better and eating in the right measure. Fresh ricotta, light, smooth, and with low fat content. Rich in protein, it helps maintain satiety without overloading the heart. Cottage, creamy and versatile, it's an excellent option for snacks and salads. Combines well with fruits and herbs. Goat cheeses. Besides bold flavor, they're easier to digest and can be better tolerated by those who've developed lactose sensitivity. Now about portions. Think of thin slices or small cubes. The equivalent of 2 tablespoons per meal is already enough to add flavor without exaggerations. Use cheese as a complement, not as the star of the dish. It should enhance, not dominate. Try combining it with fruits, nuts, and whole grain breads to balance nutrients and reduce the impact on the body. And remember, pleasure and health can go together. You don't need to give up what you like, but rather learn to balance choices. That way, cheese stops being a silent villain and becomes a moderate ally, bringing flavor without putting your health at risk. Now, tell me in the comments, which of these cheeses are you going to try first? And if you haven't done it yet, subscribe to the channel right now. Here I bring every week simple, practical, and proven tips that help you live with more energy, vitality, and independence after 60. And don't go away yet. Click on the video that's appearing there on the screen to keep taking care of your health with quality information.